Okay, second to last Impact before Bound for Glory. And unfortunately, this is really not the kind of show you want to be delivering when you got your biggest pay-per-view of the year coming up in just a week and a half. If the last couple shows are any indication, then I think it might be a good idea if the creative team went back to being just Vince Russo and Matt Conway, because those two seem to work really well together for some reason. But they added a bunch of new people recently, and ever since then we've been getting the same problem over and over again. There's just too much damn content. They're trying to cram in so much stuff, and nothing, and I mean nothing, gets the right amount of time that it needs to be really effective. Case in point, Abyss and Foley. Now, they started the show off with these guys again this week, and just like last week, the segment was very, very good. But while this segment by itself was timed well, the problem came afterward. Now, they spent the rest of the night building up to this big main event of Abyss and Matt Morgan versus Foley and Kurt Angle. And they actually did a really good job of hyping this thing up. You know, they acknowledged the history between Abyss and Morgan and the tension of Foley and Angle on the question of can those guys work together. You know, I thought this whole thing was hyped very well. But guess what? All that hype built up to a main event match that lasted for 4 minutes. 2 hours of hype for a 4-minute match. Then there's the problem with Sting and Angle and AJ. Once again, another very good segment by itself, but Sting and AJ are main eventing Bound for Glory in 10 days, and this was pretty much the only screen time they got this week. Shouldn't you be devoting a lot more time to AJ Styles, seeing as how he's, you know, the World Heavyweight Champion? Do you see the problem here? Do you see the problem with every single match on the show being so rushed and so damn short that it's over before the wrestlers can even break a sweat? Do you see the problem with being so pressed for time that you have to cut out Amazing Red's entrance 2 weeks in a row so that when he wins the X Division title from Samoa Joe, he looks like the most unimportant guy on the entire roster? Hey, look, I love Amazing Red. I love that he's the X Division champion. I love that he's getting a push. But let's face it, they never have enough time to devote to this guy, and for the last 2 weeks, TNA has made him look about as important as some gunk that Vince Russo scraped off the bottom of his shoe. He's booked like a jobber for months, when he's even on TV at all, and then from out of nowhere, he wins the #1 contendership in a 4-minute ladder match that's barely given any attention whatsoever, and before you can even blink, it's on to the next segment. Next week, he comes out for his title match that TNA didn't bother to hype up or promote for 1 second. He wins the X Division title from Samoa Joe in about 2 minutes, entirely because of Bobby Lashley's interference. His title win is completely overshadowed, made to look like just a backdrop to Joe and Lashley, and before you even have a chance to take in the fact that, oh my god, we've got a new X Division champion, it's boom, on to the next segment again. TNA, you have got to slow things down and stop trying to do so many things in one show, because it really hurts the product when you do this. Want another example? I'll give you another example. You come back from a commercial break with the 8 participants of the Full Metal Mayhem match for Bound for Glory already in the ring, because all their entrances were cut out too, just like Amazing Red's was. And just like that, they all sign the contracts and start brawling immediately. I mean, why even bother with a contract signing if you're just going to blast through it so fast? Why are you wasting time with Mike Tenay explaining the rules of a ladder match when you have ladder matches about every 3 weeks? If you want the fans to pay money to see a ladder match at Bound for Glory, then why did you give away a ladder match on free TV last week? Plus, I don't know what the writers are thinking putting Booker T and Scott Steiner in a Full Metal Mayhem match. Are you kidding me? What do you think those guys are going to be able to do in a match like that? Steiner's in bad shape physically, he can't really do that much, and Booker T is probably just going to half-ass his way through the whole thing, just like he's half-assed it in almost every single match he's had for the last year. Also, we had an 8-woman tag team elimination match with Sarita, Taylor Wilde, Hamada, and Christy Hemme versus Velvet Sky, Madison Rayne, Alyssa Flash, and Tracy Brooks. Now, the match was fairly decent, but, once again, nowhere near as good as it should have been because it was way too rushed. What kind of 8-person elimination match can you have with the amount of time that they gave this thing? I mean, you just end up with a bunch of rapid-fire eliminations that don't really mean anything, former Knockouts champ Taylor Wilde getting pinned after 1 DDT. It's just ridiculous. Now, they did put Sarita over really strongly at the end there, getting 2 pinfalls when it was 3-on-1. Kind of disappointing to me that her undefeated streak ended like this when they really could have made a big deal out of that. I mean, I can live with it, I guess, but if Velvet and Madison, with Tracy's help, can't even beat Sarita on her own without interference, then does anyone really think they have a prayer of beating Sarita and Taylor at Bound for Glory? I doubt it. And, interesting side note here. The production team had to edit out a spot where Lacey tripped and fell on her way to the ring to interfere. Too bad they couldn't edit out that weak-ass kick to Sarita's back. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But if you want to hear more of my thoughts on the Lacey situation, then check out my new blog post, Lacey Von Erich, What Were They Thinking? Available right now at tnathreshold.blogspot.com. So that's pretty much all I've got to say about Impact this week. I really didn't care for this show. I mean, the Abyss Foley exchange was very good, and the Sting AJ Kurt Angle exchange was very good. But aside from that, this was just a run-of-the-mill, poorly timed show, and that's not what you should be delivering when you're on the road to Bound for Glory. And quite honestly, when Midnight came around, I found myself really wishing that Impact was more like Global Impact, because Global Impact was awesome. It was really serious, it was realistic, you had some great wrestling, the matches got good time, the matches all felt important, like they really meant something, and goddammit, that's what Impact should be like. Now TNA, next week you have a 3-hour show, alright? You got an extra hour next week. Even if you still have too much content, 3 hours is more than enough time to fit in everything you need to hype Bound for Glory and give every segment the proper time to really sell this pay-per-view. If you don't have at least 1 hour of wrestling on this show, it'll be completely pathetic. I don't want to see any more of this 4-minute main event bullshit on a 3-hour show. See you then.